rolling.
Welcome back. Episode 60 of the Jiu Jitsu Dummies Podcast, everyone.
Hey, 60.
We're sponsored by Fightback CBD. Get 20% off your CBD order at fightbackcbd.com with code JJD. Excuse me, my voice is a little hoarse. We're also sponsored by Black Belt Digital Marketing. Anything you need from web design, Google Ads, logos, SEO, everything. Anything you can need for your business, check them out at bbdigitalmarketing.com. My name is Milton Campus. I'm a brown belt training out of South Florida. You can check me out on Instagram at Uncle Milty BJJ or the Jiu Jitsu Dummies Instagram. We got Miguel back with us today.
Hey,
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Not much, man. Miguel,
what a ride. That was a long ride. Was it 2.5 hours?
Yeah, the rain is fierce.
Ugh, nasty. Bo behind the camera.
Hello.
And joining us today, we have an incredible guest. I'm so excited for this. A black belt and best-selling author, Professor Robert Drysdale. Welcome, Professor. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good, man. Again, apologize. We apologize on almost every podcast, but never for this long. Apologize for being late.
Yeah.
Not a problem, man. I was just sitting in front of the computer, so.
Is Robert, Professor, what do you prefer? Don't care?
No, just not Bobby. Bobby. I
Bobby!
Get you fired up.
We'll go with Robert. We'll go with Robert. So we always like to start from the beginning. There's so much to talk about. Let's go with talk about your start in jiu-jitsu, how you found the martial arts, and then we'll go from there.
I think I was looking from the beginning. Since I was a child, I always liked combat, and when I was a kid, everything was. I'm a child from the '80s, so everything was He-Man and GI Joes.
Yeah,
that's always my thing. I never cared for cars and kites, and I got into soccer later in life in Brazil, but it was. I never, I think my thing was always like the combat, sort of theme. So, I did some Hapkido when I was a kid. It didn't really, I couldn't get into it, man. I just couldn't. I don't know why. Maybe it was immaturity or there's just not enough sparring. I don't know why. But when I was 16, Jiu-Jitsu was sort of becoming popular in Brazil. And there was something about it, man. Something about the word, something about what it represented, something about what, the reputation people had that the people that did jiu-jitsu, which was not a good one, incidentally. It's part of the reason why I was attracted to it. I'm not too proud to say that, but at the time when you're 16, these things are very important to you. Like you want to be the boss, you want to be the alpha dog. And to me, jiu-jitsu was a vehicle to that. It's like I wanted to be respected, and I was like, if I can know how to fight, people will respect me. So I saw all of that in jiu-jitsu, and I that was like an initial motivation. I wouldn't even call it self-defense. I just wanted to be respected, and when I started training jiu-jitsu, I fell in love with something else. Like there's so many more layers to this, and I just couldn't stop. I had zero expectations for myself as a competitor, as a fighter, but I knew I could be a good coach. I had no insecurities about that, and I also knew jiu-jitsu was something that was going to be in my life for the rest of my life. I wasn't going to abandon it. It wasn't something that was going to go away. It wasn't something I was thinking about, but I knew I had found what I was looking for.
Nice.
A lot of us have that same story. I mean, I started with Shorin-ryu karate when I was a kid, and it made me nervous when I just had to go out for that first belt promotion. I never did it. I had to study for it, sprained my thumb in another sport, and I didn't have to go back, but it made me so nervous. I think jiu-jitsu has a way of just kind of, you kind of got to just get right in there. There is no forms and kicking in the air, and right, it's just something that draws us in, right?
Yeah. I have a question. How were a lot of people don't ask this question, but like, how were your white belt days? Like, do you remember your white belt days? Like, what were the things like you learned? Like, do you remember just like what your day-to-day was? Because a lot of people talk about accomplishments, but people don't understand, like, jiu-jitsu is a grind. Like, I love jiu-jitsu because it's a grind. I love poker. I love baseball. I love things that are like drawn out and like are mentally taxing because it's very emotional.
Yeah. Did you, I mean, once you stepped on that mat, was it instant? Did you know this was for you?
Oh yeah, it was immediate. It was immediate. And I remember well my white belt incident. Like, I remember why I started. I started with my first time I trained with a girl. She tapped me twice.
Nice.
And that was my first.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with getting tapped by a girl.
Absolutely not. But it was demolishing to my ego, especially I had a crush on her too. I knew it from school. And but it was also one of those things where, man, this stuff really works, and it's part of the reason why I started. Like, man, like I just got beat by a girl that's like smaller than me, you're 16, you sort of, you're half a man by 16, so it's like, you don't want to lose the girls. But I got tapped twice the same way. I remember what move she tapped me with, by the way. And then I started training at different schools, a smaller school, like small mats. And there was no timer. I remember that. There was no timer. The round ended once someone got tapped. You took a break, and then you grabbed someone that was also taking a break, and you asked them to train. And we would stay there for like 2 to 3 hours, and there was no timer. And we just went to war. It was often, most of the time, there was no positions either. We would exchange information during the breaks, but there was no beginning and end of the class. It was like an open mat sort of session. Never had a timer. That it ended when someone got submitted.
Wow.
Or like sometimes keep going. You didn't have to stop. You could just, it's like when we're both broken down, okay, we need a 5-minute break, we would take that break. There's a lot of freedom in that regard. I remember not being good at jiu-jitsu. People always assume that the guy who's doing well in competition today was always like that for him, right? And I was awful at jiu-jitsu. I remember my best friend at the time, it took me 6 months to convince him to come to class with me because he thought he was gay. And I'm like, no, man, you got to come. This is amazing. You got to try this out. It's so much fun. And I had been training for 7 months. When I finally convinced him, it had been 6 months I'd been training. So about a month in, so he had been training for 1 month, and I had been training for about 7. He was tapping me in practice. And that was like, I remember going home like crying. I was like, this is unbelievable. Like this guy, he's been training for 1 month and he's beating me. And the worst part is not that I was getting beat. What hurts so much is that he didn't care about it. And it's so much more to me than it meant to him. Like he just gave 2 shits. He was just super talented. He's just one of those guys that could be good at anything. And 1 month in, he's beating it's my best friend. He's beating my ass in practice. And I'm like, how is this happening? Like, I care so much. I've been training way longer than he has. He's not supposed to be beating me. But he didn't last. Like, he didn't quit. So I people don't believe me, but like, I was never a gifted athlete. Like, I was mediocre at best, but I really stuck to it, man. And it was a lot of heart into it. And there was no price I was not willing to pay to be where I wanted to be. Like,
was there ever a time in those early days that you felt like you wanted to quit?
There was one time as a brown belt, like I didn't want to quit, I think, but I just didn't want to go train, whatever. If that sounds contradicting, sorry about that. If that sounds contradictory, maybe it's a little contradictory. I don't think I was going to quit jiu-jitsu, but I was having issues with my coach at the time, and I just didn't want to show up to the gym. I just didn't want to. Like, it was just like the environment was so poisonous. I just felt so unwelcome there.
It wasn't fun.
And looking back, I wasn't wrong. I have no issues admitting when I'm wrong. But at the time, it turned out that I was right. It turned into a very strange environment. I didn't want to be there anymore. I wanted to go somewhere else.
Now, where's this happening? Because you've traveled back and forth from the U.S. to Brazil. Did you get your start in Brazil?
Actually, my first experience was in Brazil, and then I did training in Las Vegas with JSEC at the time, between white and purple, for 2 years. And then I went back to Brazil as a purple belt. And then my competition experience took place mostly in Brazil from purple to black before I moved back to the U.S. after ADCC.
Wow. American in Brazil.
Yeah, it's a long story.
That couldn't have been easy.
You know what, man? I would not change a thing about my childhood, but it wasn't easy. Yeah. When people talk, I'm like, kids complain these days about getting called names. It's like, I want to laugh. Like, you have no idea how Brazilians have, at the time, especially, it's changed a lot. There's no concept of political correctness at the time. Like, the word bullying doesn't even exist in Portuguese. There's no word for it. Yeah. You can't translate it. It gives you the show. If you try to explain, like, kids making fun of you and like picking on you, like people look at you as strange, like that's just normal.
That's just what we do.
That's what we do. It's so ingrained. I mean, it's changed because it's become very Americanized and politically correct. But at the time, and that's all we did was like tease kids and bully kids. And the weaker you were, the more they came after you. And that was completely, I remember there were days at school I had to literally run home. I literally had to run after school. Like I remember the bell ring. I had to sprint.
Wow. Yeah, I have 1 or 2 of those days.
No, I love that though. I'm actually really happy it was that way. I wouldn't change a thing about it.
And when did you start competing? Right from the beginning? Was there competition? I mean, it probably is not like it is now, where there's a competition every weekend. But what was it like in Brazil at that time?
It was still growing. People don't realize this, but no one knew what jiu-jitsu was in Brazil prior to AntiGracie, despite what people say. It's not like no one ever heard of it. So there were very few competitions, but it started getting heated up in the late 90s in São Paulo, where I grew up. And I remember been training for 1 month, and I threw myself in competition. And I got my ass handed to me. I got tapped in like 20, 30 seconds. It seemed like an eternity, but it probably was more like seconds. And that was, but I felt like a need that I find jiu-jitsu something to prove myself. I wanted to prove myself, and jiu-jitsu was it. Like, this is how I'm going to prove myself. And yeah, I was just really drawn to competition. I hated it. I never wanted it. It was always, I'd go to bed at 5 a.m. I couldn't even sleep. I was so nervous, but I just felt like it's something I had to do.
So when I first heard the name Robert Drysdale, I've been training for now, I'm going on 8 years, but I've heard your name over the years. And in the past few, it was always like Robert Drysdale. Oh, he's that guy. He doesn't like the Gracies. That's the guy that's talking about, right? I mean, it's not something that you don't know. That people assumed right away when you started to look into the history of jiu-jitsu and you started to do the documentary that, and maybe even, let's say when the book came out, people are realizing, well, he's not talking bad about the Gracies. He's just giving credit where credit's really due, even within the Gracie family, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's part of the worldview that tends to put people into boxes. So if I make up a little statement, for example, I'm in favor of gay marriage, people immediately assume you're a Democrat, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they cannot see the world outside of the little boxes they created for themselves. It simplifies everything. The second you have to think freely, things get too complicated. So it's easier to frame the world in terms of pro-Gracie or anti-Gracie. And I approached this theme like exhaustively, really, in the book and elsewhere, because I knew it was going to be a problem. It's like, it's been an uphill battle to show people, like, actually, I don't care about pro or anti. I care about facts. I care about reality. I care about how things are. I don't care about your favorite team. In fact, like, I use example, like, there's one of the most common questions I got when I started this research was, oh, you're going to show that the father is not really a Gracie lineage. And then we started doing some digging and we go, oh, actually, the father lineage is a Gracie lineage. And I think I've done more than anyone else to show that. That's giving, and then that Luis Frantz, in fact, was a student of Helio Gracie based off the facts that we have, the evidence that we have. And I've done more to revive the memory of George Gracie than anyone else, maybe, because I think I've made an enormous effort to revive his name as one of the founding fathers of MMA, and in fact, the first hero of the Gracie family. So to say that it's somewhat, I think that people, they get whatever little information they have, and they insert their own, like, they fill the rest of it, the void that they don't have, with their own imagination. So it's because all they have is that pro or anti-Gracie framework, they don't bother listening to me. Like, they're not going to read my book either. They just want to put me in a category. So Robert Drysdale's a hater. I have that reputation. Sure. If you don't know anything, you want to call me a hater, that's your ignorance. Feel free to be ignorant. You have the freedom to be ignorant if that's what you want to be. But if you care for the facts and you actually listen to what I have to say and you read the book, you might draw a different conclusion. But people want to have a formed opinion. They don't want to say, I don't know. It's too embarrassing to say, I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's fine to say, I don't know. What's not okay is to draw conclusions on people you don't know or on books you never read. That's what's unacceptable to me. But it's very common.
Yes, cherry picking and confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the world we live in right now.
You know what? But I feel like that's an easy argument because, like, there's people in my family I don't like, and now I'm going to get mad about you providing a fact about a family that I don't even know. Yeah. And there's people in my family that I do like that other people don't like because they think that person's, like, either lazy or not motivated or isn't contributing as much, but they're, like, the nice person in the family and they're not driven by the same material agenda that some other people that don't like them because they see something they don't like in themselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just like, if people will read a headline and they won't read the article. And not only will they only read the headline and not read the article, they will take that headline, they will copy it, they will paste it, and it's so easy to send something to 40 people in 1 second. Like, before, to say something to 40 people, bro, that shit would take you like a year. Yeah. To really walk up to 40 people.
Now I can send the world of 15-minute TikTok video or 15-second TikTok videos or headlines. What do they call that? Clickbait. Yeah. Right? It's like you click on it and it's the complete opposite of what it really says.
That what was it? Oh, it was that thing about Oh, it was there was like a satire article about Joe Rogan losing his Spotify deal.
Yeah,
right.
It was completely.
Oh my gosh! If you know me, you know that I like the guy, right? And if you know me and you're my friend, so many people sent me that I was like,
I just Googled it right away, and
immediately
it was just like,
that's the first thing I did. And I was like, satire. I was like, that's the Babylon, bro. Like, how do you not know that's like people don't even know that that's a satire site.
Well, Robert, so much like, he's talking about family. The Gracie family is so big that you probably you can't really get the same story from two Gracies about the history of jiu-jitsu, even their involvement. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. And to be honest with them, this is not an attack. It's like most of them know their own history. And that's not. I mean, how many of us know a lot about the history of our great grandparents? Most of us
zero.
Nothing.
Actually, I know a little.
They fall within that category because they're not historians. They're not obliged to go. They're not obligated to know any of this. So they don't. And what's interesting is that some of these people that call me anti-Gracie, they're more pro-Gracie than the Gracie themselves. That's what's hilarious to me, because like Renzo Gracie reposted one of my interviews about the history of jiu-jitsu. I remember Carlinhos Gracie Jr., the president of IBJJF and Baja Gracie founder and owner of Gracie magazine. Like, this guy is the godfather of jiu-jitsu. I bumped into him at the Masters Worlds in Las Vegas. He gave me a hug and congratulated me on the book.
Yeah.
I thank you for everything you're doing. Congratulations on all your success. You deserve it. It was like, so it's like the Gracies themselves don't have it. Like, they're perfectly fine. Flavio Bering had exchanged messages with all the time. He loves what we're doing. And it's the people who either haven't read the book or don't know how to read. And that's not unusual. People that they read, but they don't know how to read.
Yeah.
They read words, but they can't see a thing behind the words.
Comprehension.
No comprehension whatsoever. And they've already framed you from the get-go. They had made up their minds. So it's confirmation bias, like you mentioned, looking for little pieces that confirm their bias. And then they go, ha, while they ignore anything else that disproves it, right? So it doesn't bother me so much. To be frank, the reception has been far more positive than I was expecting. I was ready for worse. But it is somewhat of an uphill battle. People actually, I'm not going to mention names, but people that are well-known in the jiu-jitsu community message me privately, apologizing to me, because they go, yeah, man, I said this and that about you, and now I see what you're doing, man. You're actually doing the community a huge favor.
Yeah.
But, and it's, it is what it is, man. I kind of expected that, but it says something about people, and that's what's disappointing, really, is like how willing people are to be ignorant, and they're very proud of it, too.
I mean, the second I started to do my research for the interview, I watched, read, and heard the complete opposite of what you just hear through the rumor mill. So let's take a step back. How did the project get started? Let's tell everybody the name of the documentary that's not out yet, but then the book came. So give us kind of a timeline of how the project got started and lead us up to the book.
I think it would have been 2016 when I started doing some reading on it. And I get bored very, very easily. Those who know me, like, I have to be doing 10 things at the same time. Otherwise, I'm just bored out of my mind. And when I retired in 2016. That was my last fight. And I remember, seeing a little bit about the history of jiu-jitsu. I read Shockey. Actually, I knew of Shockey, which is a book by an author called Roberto Pedreira, which I always recommend to people. It's a far more in-depth look at the history of jiu-jitsu than my book is. It's a very heavy read. I was saying this. It's one of those, it reads almost like a catalog of jiu-jitsu history. It's not a diary like my book. My book's more of a diary. It's easy to read for that reason, but it's very informative. So, I got my hands on Shockey, and then I read all 3 volumes very quickly. I read Joseto Ficairo's PhD dissertation. It's online. You can download it for free. I also read Marcel Serrano's books. They were in Portuguese. You can't get them in English, and they're telling me a very different story. And these guys are showing us facts that are not, they're not readily available. You have to dig through, either read these books or go to the Brazilian National Library. So what had happened in 2012, the Brazilian National Library digitized all their files. So they made it accessible for us to look at files going back to the 1800s. And now we can understand Japanese immigration. We can understand the role of men like Jacinto Ferro and Maeda and Gio Mori. No one had ever heard of Gio Mori. And he's more important to jiu-jitsu history than Maeda is. And no, the guy still gets 0 credit. So when I saw that, and I talked about this with some of the older guys in jiu-jitsu, they thought I was crazy, that I was making it up, like conspiracy theory. And I'm showing them pictures and documents. And that's when they were like, where did you find that? I'm like, holy shit, no one knows about this. So I thought about writing a book. And then I feel like if I write a book, I'm just repeating what other people said with less skills to do it. I'm not a professional historian. So you know what? I'm going to make a film, and I'm going to make a film about this because people are going to watch a film they're more likely to watch a film or a documentary than they are read a book, unfortunately.
I agree.
So I went out I raised the money, and the documentary has been an uphill battle for a variety of reasons. That's a whole different topic. That's a whole podcast in itself. I'm not even sure I want to go there. I assure you it has nothing to do with my integrity, work ethic, desire, willingness. It's the only thing I can be blamed of is lack of experience, being naive and too trusting, and not cunning enough in the world full of snakes. That I'm guilty of. That I'm guilty
of. Well said.
Not of dishonesty. I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of contracts. I don't need a contract. I can shake hand and, and go by that, but it's not something, that can do anything about. But anyway, during quarantine, I was bored out of my mind. I couldn't work. I couldn't teach. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't say hi to people. I couldn't hug people. It was like those 2 months of like, we're thinking the world's going to end, right? Like this is the bubonic plague 2.0.
2 weeks to stem the curve. 2 weeks.
Right. Sure.
Well, right? In the beginning, it was 2 weeks. They told us 2 weeks.
I'm still holding my breath.
It was like Vegas was 2 months of it. You couldn't even leave the house.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm doing push-ups. I started playing video games. Like pause. I played video games for like a week straight. I'm like pause. I've been whining the past 20 years about not having enough time to do anything. And here I have all the time in the world that I'm playing video games. No, I deleted every video game I had on my computer. And then I started playing the guitar. I started with that. I learned like basic. I was like, oh, I like this. This is fun. This is great therapy. And then Roberto Pedreira actually suggested I'd write an article about my memories of making a documentary. He thought that was a good story. I thought, I think that's a pretty cool story, how it came about. So I started writing an article about it. Every time I'd write like 500 words, and I go, well, if I'm going to talk about this, I got to talk about that too. Well, I can't talk about that unless I mention this. Next thing you know, I'm at 40,000 words. Next thing you know, I can keep going for another 20, 30,000. And then I had the idea of, I'm going to add the interviews to this. And then that's when I started really piecing the book together. But it was a total accident. It was not something I was planning. It was more a product out of boredom, and the topic was very fresh. The memories of the documentary and its production were very fresh in my mind. So it was very easy. I actually wrote the book in like 3 weeks. It was very quick.
Wow.
Editing took longer, but the writing itself was like very, very quick because it was all very fresh in my mind. So it came out very easily.
Wow. So now, okay. So is the documentary going to come out? Sounds like you're having whatever issues you're having. We don't have to go into, but it will come out.
It 100%. I'm 100. I'm owner of the footage. Like it's not a there's nothing other than some legal issues that I can do. I cannot make it move faster. It's not up to.
All right.
So it's just taken longer than expected. But at the same time, I think that it becomes more valuable over time because we have something that no one else has.
Mm-hmm.
What we have is something that like we have footage of grandmasters that are dead or dying. And these are the first jiu-jitsu practitioners. You can't interview them again. It's gone. Only we have that. So in some ways, it's like the anxiety over waiting, I think in some ways even increases the value of the final product. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm impatient about this. It gives me anxiety just thinking about the fact this thing is not out there. But, it's what I get for throwing myself in the world I know nothing about.
I heard you a few times talk about like there's so much content. You have so much. There was a little voice in the back of my head that says, this would be a great series, like a series of, I'm not sure. Yeah, like a docuseries. Was that ever a thought with having so much content?
That's what I want to do. Okay. But the problem is, we have content for 10 hours of the 10-hour docuseries. Like the issue is not content, and we can create more. There's still people out there to talk to. That's not the issue.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
The issue is elsewhere. It's not nothing to do. Those who read the book get a glimpse of what the real problem is.
All right.
Man, now I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I apologize. We've only just, booked you the interview. I did not have time to read the book. And the last time I had somebody that Richard Bressler, I believe you guys speak.
Yeah, we spoke. Actually, it's funny because I had never heard of him. Unfortunately, I would have gladly. He belongs in that documentary.
Yeah.
If I can't interview more people for a potential docuseries in the future, Richard's top of that list. You know, he's he's the original American Jiu-Jitsu practitioner.
Yeah.
Right. He was AntiGracie's first student, even though there were people teaching here before Rorion, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
But this guy is the first guy to believe, other than AntiGracie himself, to believe in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So he deserves his place in this story for sure, especially after reading his biography with Scott Burr, which was the editor of my book too.
Okay.
I think that, you know, he is very important in the history of Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
And I wish I had known him, right? Yeah. But after meeting him and speaking a little bit with him, he's definitely belonging there. But I don't know if we can fit it in, given, you know, we don't know how much more, you know, that's a different question if we can expand the project or not. Right?
Yeah.
So hold on one second, real quick. Let me do some shout outs here, Robert. Just stick with us for a second. We want to say, you know, give a huge shout out to DD214 Fightwear at DD214_Fightwear. Gear for the war and PTSD. Miguel's got a shirt on today. Thank you.
Let's go.
Get 15% off your online order at DD214BJJ.com with code JJD. Huge shout out to Flow and Roll, who's also doing our podcast. He's now whoop whoop at Flow_N_Roll on Instagram. You're going to get 40% off your order this month to the end of November.
40.
It was like 20, 30, and now 40. So 40% off your online t-shirt, rash guard, or gi order with code JJD. And as always, go check out their kits. They do awesome. His graphics are incredible. Does great kits, no gi and gis. So check him out. Let him know the dummy sent you. Thank you to Feito IT and AV. They specialize in commercial and residential automation, security cameras, CCTV, closed caption TV. Check them out at feitoitav.com and let them know the dummy sent you as well. Gym owners, update that security system in the gym. It's a perfect time. Shout them out. They cover all of Florida.
Yep.
Okay. And then don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share wherever you're watching or listening. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to click the bell, and you'll get get notifications directly from our YouTube page each time we launch a new video. All right.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you're enjoying the show, please help us thank our sponsor at Fightback CBD. We couldn't do this without them. Head over to their website at fightbackcbd.com. Check out their growing line of CBD products and find the solution that's right for you. That's fightbackcbd.com. And get 20% off your purchase with discount code JJD. Also, check them out on social media at FightbackCBD. Now back to the show.
All right, guys, let's jump back in. You had a question, Miguel. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, just speaking on the subject, like you said, you have 10 hours, I'm sure. But like right now, I'll prephrase it with this. When I got into jiu-jitsu, it hasn't even been that long. I think I'm just over 2 years now, but I'm the type of dude, I'm not going to say just like you, but I'm like you in terms of like, I get bored real easy and I do a bunch of stuff. Like you have to peel me away from something that I'm interested in. And so I jumped real deep into the jiu-jitsu hole. Especially online, I'm talking about watching really old matches, like just the history of it, how far back, and just where it is now. I feel like it's not only taking off in terms of popularity, but like the skill set now. You have these guys who are 17, 18, 21, 24 years old, and it's not even like the torch got passed. It's like they took the torch and they're like 3 miles away from where that last person they took it from.
Yeah,
so like, how do you feel? How do you feel the progression of jiu-jitsu is right now?
I think it's a few things to be said there. First of all, progress is always good. I'm not one of those nostalgics that go jiu-jitsu was better in the 1980s or in the early 2000s when I was most active, right? Like I'm not resentful over the fact that, you know, people have carried on that torch and made it better. I think, in fact, that's exactly, if you love jiu-jitsu, you want it to improve. Why would you insist that jiu-jitsu in the 1980s was better unless you're an egomaniac and you're really in love with yourself and you're just trying to like, oh, give me credit, me. I am happy over the fact that if you put me in a time machine and you put me in a purple belt tournament 20 years down the road, I would get my ass kicked. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's exactly what you want from jiu-jitsu. You want it to be better. I think it's shameful if a master can't make his students better than him. That's their whole point. That's your job to do it. The part that bothers me about a young generation is that they give themselves credit over something they didn't do.
Okay.
They didn't win.
Yeah.
You're a purple belt and a brown belt and you memorize 1,000 lapel sweeps. You can give yourself credit for having a good memory, but you don't really do anything. You're standing on the shoulders of giants. And that's part of my motivation with this book and documentary was, I know you may think that, the jiu-jitsu that these grandmasters are shows is inadequate, but they're the ones who made all the mistakes in the world so you can have the refined techniques. The selection process has been going on for 70 years. You have those guys to think because they got it started at a time where there was no reward. They're the real heroes, right? There's a reward now. So it's even difficult to see who's doing jiu-jitsu for the love of jiu-jitsu and who's doing jiu-jitsu because they want a quick reward. Either it's followers, money, popularity, DVDs, seminars, gyms, whatever the case. These guys are the real OGs that they're breaking themselves just like we do, refining the techniques, finding out what does work and what doesn't work through trial and error so we can have a superior form of jiu-jitsu today. So the credit for the torch that we're talking about here is not the young generation. They had a product that was chewed and digested by previous generations. Previous generations are the ones that get the credit because they're the ones that went through the process of trial and error, internet free. So that's kind of where I stand with this. I think evolution is always good. There's one thing to be said. I'm not one of those that go say, self-defense is the real jiu-jitsu. Lapels wouldn't work in the streets. I think it's awesome what they're doing with berimbolo, lapels, heel hooks. I love it. I teach it as far as I can. I'm not obsessed over learning like every single move on the planet because I don't believe that is the common denominator to win. In fact, winning has very little to do with technique, but that's a different topic. What I do have, personally speaking for myself, everyone's different. I am less interested, not that I'm not interested. I am less interested in a jiu-jitsu that doesn't work in a real fight. I am more interested in a jiu-jitsu that works MMA, jiu-jitsu gi, no gi, and in a real situation. That's the jiu-jitsu I'm most interested in. The jiu-jitsu that I see Khabib practice, I know he comes from wrestling, but I see a good jiu-jitsu guy. That's what I see. That triangle engagement, that's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But it's the same stuff. Sambo, jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling. I'm seeing the same thing. People see the differences. I see the similarities. I see Damian Maia. That's the kind of jiu-jitsu I'm interested in, right? Like Ryan Hall. Like that's the sort of jiu-jitsu that interests me, something that works everywhere, not something that only works in a specific IBJJF or submission-only environment. This is what drives me crazy about some of this young generation is that they become weaker. They're better technically, but they're very weak. They cannot, they stay in their comfort zone. Oh, I'm a submission-only guy. Oh, I'm a no-gi guy. Oh, I only compete IBJJF. And there was a theme there that's been lost. There's a toughness that's been lost over the years. It's like throw yourself in the fire. What's the problem? You're scared of losing. You're scared of the challenge. There's no such thing as gi and no gi MMA. Like back in the day, man, like if you want, like it's almost like you have to know how to fight to be a black belt, right? That was part of the code of honors. Like you could put your hands up and throw if you had to. And I don't see that in these kids. I see them like they're perfectly happy win by advantage with a lapel. And it's not right? It's not
the advantage. I love that one.
It's the weakness. It's the weakness that they become weaker, not stronger. And that's what I can't stand. So but it's complicated because people, again, they can't, you're either old school or new school. They can't see that I'm neither. I'm interested in anything that works. I don't care how old it is. Rear naked choke, still the number one submission in no-gi and MMA, and look how old that is, right? So it's not a matter of old and new. It's a matter of does it work or does it not work? And more importantly, jiu-jitsu, in my view, was meant to make you stronger mentally, and I don't see that. I think that's being lost.
Why do you think people are at such odds when it comes to something like leg locks? I just say below the belt, right? From the waist down, where it's become so divisive that they've even tried to name it like American Jiu-Jitsu. American Jiu-Jitsu, if you're doing leg locks and heel hooks, that's American Jiu-Jitsu versus, chokes and lapels, that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's the old school.
You need to watch some old videos, bro, because them dudes were locking legs.
What do you think? What do you think makes that such a device? Is it people don't like change? Is it fear of the unknown or something that they don't know? Like you just said, you teach what you know. You could teach a little bit of everything, but it sounds like you're teaching what you're best at, right? Those are your bread and butter.
Yeah. First of all, I think that the idea that it comes down to politics. Like this is not. I don't think there's a real divide. I think it's been blown out of proportion, and maybe I'm even to blame for that because I talk about it all the time. It's been blown out of proportion for political reasons. It has nothing to do with what's best for jiu-jitsu or with factual reality. To begin with, to say that we've been ignoring half the body is ludicrous. Anyone who says that, I'm sorry, you don't know jiu-jitsu history. You don't know anything. You know contemporary jiu-jitsu history. The first magazine I bought had a Comprito was tapping Holeta with a footlock in the final of the world for a world title.
Yep.
So that was like 99, I think, 98, 99, I believe. Can't remember now. So, I mean, the idea that we're ignoring half the body is ludicrous. What happened was there were no tournaments that allowed heel hooks, which for good reason, by the way. You know, today, if you blow your knee with a heel hook, you can go to a doctor and he'll reconstruct your knee from scratch, and it'll probably be better than it was before. You can put a bionic knee there and it's going to be better than it was before. That technology did not exist in 1967 when they formulated the rules. If you blew your knee from a heel hook, you would be a cripple for life. So you have to understand that technology has advanced and the rules have, you know, they're slow to keep up with the technique, which is normal. It's always been the case. But so there's been some resistance towards heel hooks because yes, there's a lot of people that they don't know that. So you don't know them. So if you don't know it, it's bad. Anything you don't like or you're not good at, that's bad, right? That's weakness. That's what I see. And then on the other hand, you get people that are exploiting that and they're going, oh, this is American jiu-jitsu. This is innovation is coming from anyone is saying that innovation has anything to do with geography is retarded. There's no other, I mean, I have no other word to describe a person who believes that, oh, because we have American blood, that's why we're like, innovation is the norm of anyone who's trained hard. There are people coming up with new techniques in Poland, in Australia, in Japan, in Brazil, in Canada, and anyone who's trained hard is coming up with new stuff. But marketing is a real thing. If you keep hammering a lie, if you keep hammering images, if you keep hammering an idea in people's head, they end up absorbing it. And the more people believe it, the more trustworthy it is, because if a lot of people are saying it, clearly it doesn't need any scrutiny, does it? It must be true, right? Like Wikipedia, sort of like research. So, and that's kind of where we're stuck in. We're stuck in this conversation about jiu-jitsu being, you know, innovation being something Americans are responsible for. I'm like, interesting. What about all those half guard, butterfly, open guard, lapel, the Lahiva sweeps that were people were doing in Brazil in the late 90s, early 2000s? Yep. None of that is real, right? It's all coming from the United States. And I'm watching tournaments and I watch them closely. And I go to these big tournaments and I'm watching what's happening. And I'm going, it's nothing to do with nationality. It has to do with how, you know, like these guys are good. And some of them happen to be American. Some of them happen to be Brazilian. But it's so easy to tap into people's, it's this, their jingoism, right? Like, I'm an American, so we have to be the best. Or I'm Brazilian, we have to be the best. And to me, it's so pathetic. It's nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. You know, but they try to capitalize it for political gain and financial gain because it works. Because the second you say it's American jiu-jitsu, or, you know, you get all these pseudo-patriots, that's what I call them. They're not nothing to do with patriotism. And they go, oh, I'm a hardcore because I love my country, so I'm going to be an American jiu-jitsu guy. And frankly, I don't even like Brazilian jiu-jitsu either. I think Brazilian is completely unnecessary as well. So I never had an issue dropping the Brazilian from jiu-jitsu. What I do have an issue with is people lying about the history of jiu-jitsu and going, oh, innovation is something we're responsible for, because they're trying to rewrite history. And that's what's so disgusting to me. So I'll give you an example. I was watching a documentary a while ago about the history of MMA. And my dumb ass is going, oh, they're going to be talking about George Gracie and Chico Soledad. Interesting, right? And I started watching it. Guess where they started the history of MMA?
I know where some have. They started at that Forrest Griffin fight, right? The Forrest Griffin. Wrong.
I love Forrest.
Who doesn't love Forrest Griffin?
He's one of my best. He's one of the best training partners I've ever had in my life. I love Forrest,
okay.
But he didn't start history of MMA. Neither did Dana White or the UFC, for that matter. Vale Tudo, which is its real name, started in the 1930s in Brazil. And that's a fact, right? Modern Vale Tudo, as we know it, came from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil in the 1930s. That's not up to debate. But people can't handle that. That's why they got to change the name from Vale Tudo, which is its real name, to MMA, because it's anglicized, right? And they're doing the same thing with jiu-jitsu now. 40 years from now, people are going to believe that jiu-jitsu started with Gordon Ryan. It's like, oh, what a dishonest thing to do. And I get called a hater. And that's the crazy thing to me. I get called a hater. These people that are straight out manipulating information, lying, and distorting history. And I'm the hater. I mean, you don't know if I'm going to laugh or cry. It's a load of crap. And that's what's happening, because by saying that we are leading innovation, you can say that, okay, really, we're the ones that did everything for jiu-jitsu. Really, those Brazilians, yeah, they're inadequate. And this has nothing, I'm far from one of these like fanatical chauvinistic nationalists. I don't believe in that. I don't like it. But when I see people using it in order to separate jiu-jitsu, to divide it, right, and gain political and financial favor from it, it does upset me, because it's not what jiu-jitsu is about. It's completely missing the point.
I'd also like to add that it's a very small percentage of the population that even knows about this. My mom can't even pronounce jiu-jitsu, first of all.
My mom still calls it karate.
I just feel like we're so like in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're so in it that like everything we just spoke about, like it hit hard for me. But like if I made
some of our listeners are probably just hearing some of this stuff for the first time.
I'm probably like close to your age. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a 37-year-old man who got in because I was bored and my daughter was doing it, and I grew up wrestling and I did combative. So I was like, I'll do this too, you know?
Yeah.
As if my daughter's doing it, I'll do it, you know? And I feel like the new marketing strategy is just get as many people onto the mats as possible. Like nobody's like what he said, like the toughness. I feel like a lot of the reason the toughness went away is because it's turned a lot into, and I think it's good for the sport, it's turned into like the jazzercise, like come in, get a good exercise, get confidence, get, like meet friends, because your jiu-jitsu friends are good friends. You know what I'm saying?
Look,
like
there are more hobbyists than
I
there
think so.
are competitors.
Did you just say jazzercise?
Yes,
I
I did. Say
did.
jazzercise.
You remember the jazzercise place
Yeah.
next to Felipe's?
Yes, I did.
Let me tell you about this place, bro. This lady, she designed her curriculum, if I remember correctly, around how horses move. So you would go in there and like pretend to be a horse and get an exercise.
You're going. That's a whole nother podcast, bro.
Hey man, I'm just saying,
that's
like
a whole nother podcast.
hey, there's probably a jazzercise horse podcast. You know what I'm saying? We don't know that world.
There's also a
Robert,
thing called
I've actually said before. I started when I was 41. I'm 48 now. I've said I competed up until I had a heart attack. I competed once after I had a heart attack, and then I stopped. It was just, I just didn't feel like I could put in the amount of training that I needed to kind of get on my. I would love to do it again, though. I would love to compete again. But I've said there are more of us hobbyists than of them competitors.
100%.
And
that's
right. So my point at that time was we were talking a lot about gyms that would push their students to compete. And I said, I wanted to compete. I went to my coach in my 40s at 42 and told him, I want to compete. His jaw dropped on the floor. He's like, what do you, we're the same age. I was competing 20 years ago. You want to start competing now? What's wrong with you? But we did it. I did well, and I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot about jiu-jitsu and myself.
Yeah.
But that's not for everybody, right? That's not for everybody. So like you said, we're a small, we're like in the inside world, if you want to call us that. We're on the inside of a small world inside, right? It's martial arts, then it's jiu-jitsu, and then it's those people in the know that love talking about this stuff. There are some people that just like going to the gym and do jiu-jitsu, go home.
Yeah.
They don't listen to podcasts. They're not looking at the history. But look, for us, it's definitely, this, we love to do it. We love to talk about it. If we can't do it, we're talking about it.
I love this discussion. Mr. Drysdale, I mean, he's got something that I even love talking more about. I mean, I love jiu-jitsu, but my wrestling coach used to make us watch UFC fights. Yeah. Shout out.
And you did some MMA too, right?
Oh, yeah, he was in the cage.
Right? You did some MMA.
Guys, yeah, I did. Which was my always my goal really was to fight. My dream was a UFC belt. That was like to me, that was like to me, it would have been like the way to end my career, right? But you know what? Just to find when I say like, when I'm talking about weight, it's nothing to do with tournaments. I think tournaments are an aspect of jiu-jitsu. The vast majority of people don't compete, and that's perfectly fine. The vast majority of jiu-jitsu practitioners don't care about podcasts and jiu-jitsu history books, right? And that's perfectly fine, because I think the value of jiu-jitsu is not medals. Like I say this all the time. I actually happen to know where my ADCC trophy is. It happens to be right here, right next to me. Yeah. But I didn't even know where it was for 6-7 years. It wasn't until I got divorced. It was like I had to put a bunch of boxes in the garage. Oh shit, here it is. After all, I hadn't even thought, because that is a mom. I call it. It's like a little dose of a drug, right? You feel good momentarily. 2 days later, you need another hit, right? It's sort of like an addiction, but it's not what jiu-jitsu has. The best jiu-jitsu has to offer. I wasn't implying that just for. I don't believe that. I don't train competitively. I still love jiu-jitsu. I love it for what it is. I think that it's the part that bothers me really is the manipulation. Like it's very dishonest. Like, and there's a lot of it going on. and it's very selfish. It has nothing to do with what's best for jiu-jitsu. It's about me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what gets under my skin a little bit.
I think it should. Yeah.
You mentioned a name earlier, and I know that you had a little bit of a back and forth with him. You mentioned Gordon Ryan before. When we talk about leg locks, the people that aren't in the know, they know who Gordon Ryan is. People that don't know a lot about jiu-jitsu or just starting jiu-jitsu know the name Gordon Ryan.
Well, he's hands down like the superstar, man.
Yeah.
He's best no-gi grappler in the world, right?
You had a bit of a back and forth with him on your ADCC win. You brought up ADCC. I'd like to just kind of give you a moment to talk a little bit about it. I know you've talked about it in other podcasts, but there was the back and forth about sharing the prize money, and that led to people making assumptions of, on your fight with Galvao. Do you mind talking about that a little bit and kind of,
Sure, I don't mind talking about it. I think that the more I think about it, the less interesting Gordon is to me. The more he's like, if you had the power to remove his talent from him, if you could do that, you can suck the talent out of, because he's incredibly talented and skilled. No one disputes that. I've said it multiple times. That's not the debate. But if you had the power to remove it, what's left? I asked that. Think about it. What's left?
I don't even think about it. I just like his grappling.
A lot of talk.
He's a troll, right?
Like a great mouthpiece.
Yeah, it does. There's not much left. So he's not that. I mean, yeah. So he it's funny. He says that, I get like I'm obsessed with him. And he's the one that comes after me every time, and I have no idea. He keeps reminding me how irrelevant I am. I'm like, yeah, he keeps coming back to me all the time. I use him as an example because he's the most known guy right now. If it would have been someone else, I could have used Mike Mutsumesi, for example, or Buchecha, for example. These are top players, and he's a very known top player. That's why I mentioned, not because, I personally, I'm over it. Like I think that it's very destructive, that sort of language and exchange. I don't like it. It's not who I am. I've been sucked into it a few times, and I regret it every single time. But I'm human. I'm not perfect. It's hard to remain, like a stone ice man, when you're being attacked unfairly. Regarding ADCC, all I can repeat is what I said before. I did nothing wrong. And I can say that with a straight face. I can say that. I can look anyone in the eye. If I had a time machine and I am the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, I'm going to absolutely do the right thing. I could have done nothing different. That's all I can say. I have zero guilt. And frankly, if people want to take credit for me or whatever the case, I'm old enough. I don't know if I'm cynical enough or wise enough, maybe a little bit of both. Yeah. But the treasure that I have taken from my journey has nothing to do with the trophy. It has to do with, I remember what I was like, and I know who I am right now. And that's jiu-jitsu. And that's what jiu-jitsu has done for me. That's my treasure. And you can't take that from me. So if people want to give me credit or take credit, it's nice to be acknowledged. It's a nice little kick, it lifts you temporarily, but it's not the treasure that I've taken from jiu-jitsu. What I take that has, that I care for most dearly cannot be stripped from me, cannot be questioned, because only I value it, no one else. And I'm okay with that.
You have kids?
2 kids.
2 kids.
Nice.
Do they do jiu-jitsu?
Yes. I mean, when I have them, they do.
Yeah.
Not very often.
Yeah.
How old?
8 and 10.
8 and 10.
Wow. Yeah. 6 and 9.
6 and 9.
Yeah. Like I said, we're probably pretty close in age.
Was it something that was just natural? Like, I do jiu-jitsu, they're going to do jiu-jitsu. Was it up to them? Did you let it come? No. Did you let them come to it?
I used to believe that before I had kids. No, give them freedom. Let them be free little butterflies until you have kids. And it was a load of crap.
Nope.
You got a tiger dad, be a tiger mom, and your kids will thank you at the end. Kids, freedom is something you have to earn. Children have done nothing to earn it. You haven't done anything. You're a baby. I feed you. I pay your bills. Why would you give you any freedom? You've done nothing to earn it.
Bam, right? Dictator Drysdale over here.
I'm a very good man. I never spank my kids. I don't even raise my voice. Like, they fall. It's just, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I never give them a choice. In fact, they know you're not going to leave the house until you're a black belt. They're looking, how long is that going to take? I'm like, I don't know. That's you. Yes. But my whole thing is, I know what jiu-jitsu can do for people. And like, why would I not make sure that they have that? Right? Even if they're going to continue it or not, it's not to the point, but I want them to have that tool for life.
I don't know where I heard it. I know it was somebody famous that said you would teach your children how to swim, right? We all want to I think
In Florida,
in most
yeah.
places, especially in Florida. Let's use Florida. You're in
Teach them how
Florida.
to
You're
fight
teaching your kids.
gators.
There's canals, there's pools, there's the beach.
More kids
You're going to
drown here
teach you.
anywhere else.
Why wouldn't you teach them? They're more likely to get into a fight than fall in a pool. Why wouldn't you teach them how to protect themselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm on the
And
same.
like to me, the self-defense is like a smaller aspect of it. I think that's the fitness and that's the self-defense and the confidence and all that. That to me, that's a smaller aspect. It's how it changes you for the better, crafts you, like it beats you up enough. You get hardened by it. Like they say that once you wrestle in life, there's nothing that's harder than that. I can't remember the exact quote. I think wrestling is harder than jiu-jitsu. I do, because it has a superior culture. And that's a whole different podcast. But jiu-jitsu does toughen you, and it ought to. Like that's its greatest. It makes you stronger mentally, and it gives you reason. It gives you purpose. It gives you community. It gives you friends. It gives you a second extended family. Why would you not want to give people that?
Yeah, man. I'm the same way. I have a fight with my daughter at least once a week. She's like, I can't wait, because I told her 16, and but you have to go at least twice a week.
16 till she gets to make her own decision about whether she wants to go to jiu-jitsu.
And that's kind of a carrot on a stick, really, if I'm being honest.
It's far enough down that
Yeah, that she'll forget about it, but it's.
What do you do? Choke her out?
No.
You know why? I realized why my younger daughter especially was very resistant to training. The older one not so much, but the younger one always was. Is because I realized she had easier options at her display. She had an iPad. She had TV. She had all these easy things. Why would you choose hardship? When she started training jiu-jitsu without complaining? When I took all the easy things away from her.
Okay.
You know how much fun jiu-jitsu is if you got nothing else to do? It's incredible.
Yeah.
So I see the value of things that are hard, and I want them to go through these hard things. So I took all the easy stuff away, and I'm like, okay, let's see what happens now. All of a sudden, I can't wait to do jiu-jitsu. I'm bored out of my mind. I'm like, there we go.
I think this would be a good time to announce that my wife has started doing jiu-jitsu.
Good for you, man.
I finally broke in the house.
How'd you do it?
I didn't.
She came to you.
Okay, this is what happened. The gym did it. Shout out to Henzo Gracie Weston. Dude, like the lady that runs the joint, she was just like, because my wife goes there with the kids because I'm still at work, and then I go later on in the night. She was like, oh, we're starting to do an all-girls class. Maybe you should try. And she's like, well, I don't know if I want to commit. I still got this other gym thing that I do. And she was like, you don't have to pay anything. You're already paying the family plan. So it's just, we'll even give you the gi.
Made it real easy for her to say yes.
Made it real easy. So, tonight's girls' night. She's there right now. And
it's not her first class tonight.
She's not her first class.
What did she say about the first class?
They were doing scissor sweeps. And she came back with mat burn, like on her elbows and her knees and the tops of her feet. And she was like, I don't know why I'm so rubbed up. And I was like, hey, it's just how it happens, and she liked it. I mean, she didn't not like it. She knows that it's tough. And then all the people she was training with were really nice. Most people, like in the jiu-jitsu community, like most people are really nice, because getting beat up doesn't feel good, especially if you're doing it 5 days a week. It
weeds out the assholes.
Real quickly. Yeah.
It definitely weeds out the bad people.
It irons out, or it'll iron out if you are an asshole. You sometimes you get cocky, and then you drive home and you're like, was it really necessary to beat up Jimmy? And it's not.
I'm gonna say I'm a little jealous, Robert. I've been working on my wife for 7 years.
Did it?
I'm gonna say I actually last night she actually said, I said, I'm gonna go to the gym. I meant the gym in our community. I wasn't going to jiu-jitsu. And I said, come to the gym. And she was like, oh, jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, you're not going to go to jiu-jitsu. She's like, well, I do it with you. Because now we have a small a section of our garage. We just moved, so we have some mats in the garage.
Damn.
So I'm a little bit closer.
So you've been throwing her.
Bit closer.
You've been throwing her against the wall.
I have a 17-year-old daughter going away to school. And I told her, if she sees you doing it, she's at least going to maybe be more likely to let me show her. It's my stepdaughter, so it's not like I'm not her dad. I can't force her, but it's kind of like that,
Yeah.
You know how
so
much
I would really love to show her, as somebody who's going away to school soon. I'd really love to show her some things that she could be doing just to protect herself a little bit. I mean, every father wants to.
That's my goal, man.
I
I just want my kids to be able to protect themselves, and I also want them to just essentially, like, what Rob said, like it changes you. Like your problem solving skills become better. If you do something that's more difficult for fun, then real life becomes easier. I'm pretty sure Joe Rogan says that every other podcast. But it's true. It does change you. Hardship does change you. Like change is not comfortable. Growth is not comfortable. But being stuck somewhere because you didn't want to do those things is worse. And I want my kids to be mentally strong. I want them to be prepared. I want them to be able to help friends if they're in danger. And most importantly, they'll learn to recognize what bad looks like. Yeah. They know what an attack stance looks like. They know what their bubble is. They know when something is going bad, that bad feeling, like that dark alley feeling. I want them to be prepared for life because, it doesn't get easier, you get tougher, right? That's what I tell my kids all the time.
Robert, we have a little bit of speed round questions that we do towards the end of the episode. So I'm just going to throw these out to you. You can elaborate as much as you like, but a couple word answers are fine as well. So your preference, gi or no gi? What do you like to train the most?
I've been going back and forth between the two since I was a white belt. There are like months like I much prefer no gi. And then for a while ago, it was a lot of gi. I really got into the gi. I mean, the last, since I've retired, the last 6 months, I've been really getting into no gi. I'm very, very open to learning heel hooks. So I've been actually been playing around with heel hooks in the gi. I think they should be actually trying to organize a tournament where heel hooks are legal in the gi because I think they're safer, not more dangerous.
Really?
Because it's easier to defend. It's easier to defend a heel hook in the gi.
The argument for not doing them in the gi is that the gi creates more friction and you can't get out. Am I correct? Is it about the friction that it creates and you not being able to maybe twist like you could with a sweaty leg on an arm?
You could grab their sleeve though.
Yeah, that's exactly why it's easier to defend. You grab the sleeve in the game. It's like foot locking from 50-50. It's not so easy. I get way more foot locks 50-50 no gi than I do in the gi. So that right there says a lot. I think people have this idea that they're going to spin out of heel hooks, right? And we used to believe that. But we know now that spinning out is actually dangerous if you're going against a guy that knows what he's doing. You got to tuck the heel in, the opposite of spinning out, right? So in the gi, you can do that as well, which is the correct defense. Plus, you can hand fight by grabbing the sleeve in a way that you can't in no gi. So I've not been playing around a lot. I've been allowing, every now and then I'll train heel hooks in the gi with my students. And it's easier to defend. It's not harder when you think about it. Why is it illegal in the gi? It's just easier, not harder.
Are you a fan? You did talk about going to tournaments. Are you a fan of jiu-jitsu? When you finish this podcast, are you going to be on Flow Grappling? Do you get online and watch videos? Are you somebody who consumes that content that's out there?
Bro, he wrote a book on jiu-jitsu.
No, I know, but I'm saying let me correct with the competition side. I've fallen in love with Flow Grappling and just let it run all day while I'm working at home. It's on in the background and it's just what is it called? Flow Grappling, 24/7. Yeah. Right. Is that your personality or do you, are you doing other things?
Zero. It'll be like it'll be like asking an accountant if he wants to look at numbers on the weekend.
Yeah,
I'm sure it would be like asking an attorney when he's going out with his family, asking him for legal advice. They fucking hate it. And don't get me wrong, I watch competition. I was at Master World. I see what's happening. I've been doing this long enough. I can look at something. I know what's happening. But I don't get the hype. Doesn't excite me. It never has. Even the UFC, I used to have what do you call it? When you can record it and then watch it later.
TiVo, yeah.
I would just fast forward everything until only the part I prefer high because I want to fight. The technical aspect fascinates me. I don't like hype. I don't to me, I'm a very merit-based kind of person. I don't even like marketing because people can't always separate merit from marketing. It's something that gets people. I think people believe that if something is very popular, it's because it's been earned, right? If someone is popular, it's because it's earned its place there. And we're watching the world it's been flipped upside down. What I believe is not even a thing anymore. It's the more you can be YouTube or Instagram popular, and all of a sudden you're one of the best in the world. Never mind going to the gym. Skip that part, right? So I don't like it. I'm not attracted to it in any way. I just like the techniques.
I was wrong. Okay, I could be wrong. A blue belt.
Next question: takedown or pull guard? Preference?
Now, takedown. When I was competing, I was a guard puller my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm against it. I think you should be penalized for guard pulling. I've made this argument many times. I think that it is weakened jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is not as efficient as it could be because we allow guard pulling.
Andrew Wiltsey has been saying that too. From Pedigo Submission Fighting, the Daisy Fresh guy. He's like their premier black belt.
Yeah.
He's the same thing. He's like, I don't pull guard anymore. He's like, I only do top pressure. I only do takedowns now because he said, A, it's not realistic, and then B, the same thing he was saying. It's like this whole people who do the pull guard to who does it first, because if you get up first, you get 2 points for a sweep, and then it slows the game down. It's not as not realistic.
It's one reason why I've always been critical of submission only is because they have managed to make jiu-jitsu less fight oriented. That's incredible to me. It's like I thought IBJJF I was doing a crappy job. They're like, they did way worse because they've moved away from the reality of combat. Like you just watch, it doesn't even look like a fight anymore. Like no one's fighting for position. They let people pass guard. They do this. And I'm like, I'm like, dude, if there were a fight, I'd be dropping elbows on you.
Yeah, that's my move.
Yeah.
That's my move.
Like
we do slap jiu-jitsu.
They call it Home Alone, right? I think they have a name. And then I'm looking at that. I'm going, that's better. That's real jiu-jitsu. I was like, I think we have to make jiu-jitsu as close as possible to the reality of combat because that's what made it popular, right? Let's remember why we started jiu-jitsu, not because it was pretty. We started jiu-jitsu because it worked, right? That's what got the whole thing going was exactly that jiu-jitsu would work in a real situation. And we've moved away from that. So that's why I'm like, like I said, going back to the lapel and 50-50 thing, it's like I'm two minds about it. I appreciate the evolution, but at the same time, it's become very unrealistic.
Do you like combat jiu-jitsu?
Not really, because there's no wrestling. I like wrestling. To me, that's why I love wrestlers. I've never wrestled a day of my life.
It's fun.
I love wrestling as a sport because it's so real. It's so like it's like a sin to say that today, but manly.
I wish I could wear shoes and do jiu-jitsu.
Well, you have a
I
wrestling background, so you're biased.
Wrestling is everything that it's because it's government funded, so they've managed to remain pure. Like you can't get mad at your coach because he didn't pat you on the back after tournament. Coach will take the fuck off. Jiu-jitsu, you gotta, if you're not reposting their stuff and liking their comments on Instagram, they get set. It's like, man, like jiu-jitsu is subjected to that financial pressure in a way that wrestling is not. That's why they're stronger people. I mean, it's a stronger culture. That's what I'm trying to say.
You know what our coach used to make us do? So you have to clean the mats. Our wrestling room was in the cafeteria. So the mats were in these wooden boxes in the cafeteria. We'd have to put away our warm-up was clearing the whole cafeteria, rolling the mats out, mopping the mats. And you know how you dried the mats?
Yeah. You
would have to run around them until they were dry. So the vortex of 20, 30 kids.
That was
I love that coach. And you're thankful. You probably hated it at the time, but you look at him, you go, that was a real coach right there.
I was thinking about Emilio Condis stuck in traffic today, man. Like, I think I'm going to get a hold of him. That guy, he won himself a beer. I used to work at Hooters when I was in high school. And in the back of the house, they wouldn't let me serve. And he came in and I told the cook, I was like, hey man, that's my wrestling coach. He could do a push-up and clap behind his back and catch himself. This was back in the day. He's like, I'll buy him a pitcher of beer and his food if he could do that. Bro, on the spot, on the deck, just did it. Wow. This guy was a really good wrestler too, man.
So, Robert, next question is, what is your ultimate goal in the world of jiu-jitsu? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Dude, I've never even thought about that, to be honest. I like the people who know me, who have spent time with me, to, if not like me, at least respect me and maybe think that I had an overall positive. I think we all have positive and negative effects in the world, right? Mm-hmm. I would like to be more positive than negative. And if I walk away from jiu-jitsu and from life one day and I go, I did more good than bad, I think to me, that's the ultimate.
Nice.
So with that being said, do you have any regrets as it relates to your jiu-jitsu journey?
Oh, I have no regrets in life.
No.
Zero. Every single thing in my life was exactly as it should have been.
Okay.
No regrets, bro.
So
because of my thing, if you regret something in life, it's because you're not happy with where you are, right? Because your mistakes lead you exactly where you are. I made plenty of mistakes, but they put me in a place that made me feel good about it afterwards. So I'm like, I live in the moment, and if it's bad, you make it good somehow.
Okay. So my last question is probably the most important question we're going to ask you here today. Do you or do you not wash your jiu-jitsu belt?
I just started.
I'm my man right there.
Because of COVID?
Let's go.
No, because I become more a cleaner as I get older. When I was a kid, I didn't like to brush my teeth. I didn't like to shower. I didn't like believe in deodorant. Like I didn't wash when I first started jiu-jitsu, I go like a week without washing. Put it in the backpack. I'd pull it out. It'd be wet, and I'd put it back on. Like, never crossed my mind to
Smells
care.
good
In
after a week
Brazil?
in the back.
In the
No, but I guess-
Brazilian heat.
In my head, it was like it's gonna make my opponent like weaker. It's gonna attack. Like it's gonna make him want to quit. So I use it as almost like part
It's
of my
like the
strategy.
Komodo
like,
dragon,
make
you
me
know?
miserable in any way I can.
Yeah.
Including now, as I get older, I become not a germaphobe, but like I train. I have to shower within the next 5 to 10 minutes. I cannot be sweaty. I want to get in the shower right away. I brush my teeth 10 times a day. Go figure, and like washing them after a while. Like that belt is disgusting. I've never washed this thing, so now I do.
I like this
Okay.
guy.
Belt washer. I actually when I get home, I'll usually like kiss my wife hello. She'll go to grab me, maybe give me. I'm like, no. There are 10 different men sweat on me. I don't want you touching me. I don't want you. A little lip kiss and let me take a shower, and then you can hug on me all you want.
For sure.
Get ringworm in the U.S. We didn't get ringworm in Brazil. Ringworm doesn't
Really?
exist in. No,
Really?
I've never even. Brazil's never heard of ringworm. It doesn't, or staph for that matter. It doesn't
Really?
even exist. Yeah, but it's over here. It's like ringworm is gross.
That's
Like,
because-
you gotta take care of that shit.
That's because 80% of the population has never taken an antibiotic.
No, I think it's I think it's the
They
climate.
have it. I think they have like.
In Brazil, you're saying?
I think they have stronger immune systems. Is
Oh,
what I'm
hell
saying.
yeah. Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's antibiotics for sure. But I think it might have something to do with the climate. Like, bacteria is different everywhere. Viruses, like they're not the same. They have different strains in different places. Like ringworm, I've never seen ringworm in Brazil. And believe me, man, there was one gym I trained at. This is a true story. There'd be a pile of gis in the corner. People would be done training and then just throw the gi in the pile.
Nice.
And then the next day they'd find their gi.
No. Oh,
Yeah.
That's kind of how no ringworm, zero ringworm. No one ever. I never saw it there.
You could not do that here.
Bro, that's the Pojada pile, bro.
Robert, I want to thank you very, very much for doing this. I'm going to tell you now, no, I would love to keep on going. I'm under the weather. We were late, and I was under the weather. So much so I had Bo meet me downstairs. I said, bro, I am so sick. You got to meet me downstairs. Make sure I get upstairs. So I really feel like crap.
Yeah.
I appreciate you so much for doing this. Again, so sorry about being late, but we love to talk to you again. I'll make the same, extend the same invite that I do to most. If you're ever down in Miami, we've got an awesome studio. You're only seeing me. You'll see the whole studio on the when we put this out. We'd love for you to come by and sit down with us in studio and do something face to face one day. If you're ever down in Miami, just let us know. I recently quit my job, so we do this more full time.
Awesome.
So we're more available. So we used to just do them on Saturdays. Now we're more available. So the invitation is there. We'd love to kind of meet you face to face one day. And again, we appreciate you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
And I'll see you guys. Have come to Vegas. More than welcome to stop by the gym.
Awesome, man.
Nice.
So
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. That was awesome, right?
That was great.
What a great guy.
Yeah.
Super nice.
Knows what he likes.
He definitely, I said it at the beginning of the interview. If you just listen to the little trolls online, you'd think that like he's a bad guy. Like, that's the guy, bad mouthing the great. It's nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I hear the more that I researched and got ready for the podcast, the more I found that it's the exact opposite. He's kind of raining more accolades down on the Gracie family as a whole,
Jiu-Jitsu.
but less on individual. Like, okay, there's not so much credit to one person.
No.
There was a community of people, a family of people.
Well, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
You need that. You need all the different gyms.
Yeah.
With,
All right, let's do a little housekeeping, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. Shout out to our Patreon podcast sponsors, including Carlson Gracie Winter Haven and Winter Haven, Florida, cgwinterhaven.com, at Carlson Gracie Winter Haven on Instagram. Carlson Gracie Broward County in North Lauderdale. CarlsonGracieBrowardCounty.com, at Carlson Gracie Broward County. John Way Martial Arts in Plantation, Florida as well. JohnWayMartialArts.com, John Way Martial Arts, or at John Way Martial Arts on Instagram. Our individual podcast patrons include Jebediah Berra, Robert Walker, Frank House, Boa Athletics. It's at Boa_Athletics on IG. Jason Smiley, CJ Carroll, Mission 22, Chuck Reddor, and Roberto Santiago. If you want to get a shout out just like that, you can visit us on patreon.com/Jiu-Jitsu Dummies. You're also automatically entered to win $100 worth of Jiu-Jitsu swag every single month. All right. You can check us out at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies for all the ways to watch, listen, and support the show. IG?
Oh, yeah. MLJ Rico.
I'm still laughing at that.
That's my nickname.
Eat it from the back at Yahoo.
Oh, yeah.
When I want to laugh, when I'm feeling sad during the day,
yeah.
I just go to that video clip.
Don't get your buddy a job. You better vet him first.
Hey, thank you to the We Defy Foundation for all the support and all they're doing for the veteran and jiu-jitsu communities.
Big up.
They provide therapeutic relief to disabled combat veterans through jiu-jitsu. Check them out at We Defy Foundation on Instagram, and you could donate anytime at wedefyfoundation.org. And last but not least, at Fightback CBD, get 20% off your CBD order at fightbackcbd.com with code JJD. Again, Uncle Milty BJJ on IG. Bo?
At Badworks, BADWERKS.
Check him out. He does some awesome work.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching and listening, everybody.
Thank
Stay
you, everybody.
safe. Peace, love, jiu-jitsu.
Hey,
We'll
let's go.
Take care, guys.